Economy's business, and we've been talking about the gas and the agreement signed between EGAS, Eni actually, and we have with us online engineer Salah Hafiz, former Vice President of the General Authority for Petroleum. Hello, sir. Welcome to our show again. Pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Sir, with this, talking about this agreement between EGAS and the Italian Eni, what's the significance of this, the very important, as you know, it's been signed, important witness by the Minister, Petroleum and others, and of course, Eni, CEO of Eni, the importance of this agreement?
Well, it's very, very timely, given the problems of Ukraine and Russia and the shortfall of the supplying the gas to Europe. This is a framework agreement between the regulatory body in Egypt, which is in charge of the gas-prone areas, as well as the downstream of dealing with the gas, and Eni, which is the largest operator in all aspects of gas in Egypt. So this is very timely because a framework agreement can be extended to cover exploration areas, increase of production, gas production, export of gas, because Italy has got many gasification stations in Europe and full-fledged network of pipelines, so they can have access to anywhere in Europe using the Egyptian gas and their parts of the Egyptian of the gas production in Egypt.
With the efforts of Egypt, of course, Egypt is very keen on becoming a hub, to transform into a regional central hub for energy trading and trade. And it's a very great importance that Egypt attaches to this. So how is this, the transition to a low carbon economy?
Well, the hub, it takes time and many incidences that should occur together to develop the hub. But as I said, it's very timely now, especially because Eni and Italy at large, they import a lot of gas from the surrounding areas. So this could be the nucleus that we could build on to develop this energy hub, but more importantly now, dealing with gas and exporting gas.
Sir, also a question, related from near or far, the decision to pay in Egyptian pounds and the decision of Russia to pay in rubles. How does it fit in this, whatever is happening with the trade, buying and export and import, especially in the field of gas?
Well, of course, Egypt will be keen to get the price of gas in dollars.
Yeah.
But it is a disaster for Europe to have to pay in rubles because this is the dollar became a commodity related to petroleum at large, gas and oil. So by changing this aspect, it will definitely affect the value of dollar, and it will be burden on Europe to pay either in ruble, which will make the ruble much higher in value, or gold, which is as problematic as paying by rubles.
So how do you qualify this move to pay in rubles? Is it a plus or minus, actually, action?
For us, it doesn't make any difference, but it is definitely very negative for Europe and very positive. This is actually to retaliate the economic sanctions that were imposed by the West and more so by the United States to get Russia to concede to their requests but I don't think this will be very effective at this point of time. But in the long run, nobody really knows how it will develop and be aggravated.
Yes. Engineer Salah Hafiz, thank you very much for being with us. It's always a pleasure having you. And we do have with us our guest for tonight, talking about something different, of course, Egyptian. We have with us Professor Dr. Said Khouly, Professor of Business Administration, also Chairman of the High Supreme Council of Universities. Welcome, sir, with us.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you. It's always a pleasure having you, and we have a lot to talk about, actually, and talking about the initiative that we all want. That is going on till the end of Ramadan month, holy month, and helping the people with the high prices that rose not only in Egypt, well, internationally speaking, and we're going to be talking about that. There's a lot of work done by the government, actually, and to make everything available, especially in this very important month. And of course, that we're celebrating Easter, so we're extending our own congratulations to Egyptian Copts all over the world and to Egypt as overall, of course, for the advent of Easter. And of course, the resurrection. Well, we are going for a short break, after we should be back, starting our talk. Stay tuned to us. Don't go away. I've forgotten.
The government raised the prices of all types of gasoline by 25 piastres per litre as of 9 o'clock on Friday morning. This is the fifth consecutive increase in gasoline prices and the second since the beginning of this year. The increase goes as follows: gasoline 80 at 7.5 pounds instead of 7.25 pounds per litre. Gasoline 92 at 8.75 pounds per litre instead of 8.50 pounds per litre. Gasoline 95 at 9.75 pounds per litre instead of 9.50 pounds per litre. And diesel 6.75 pounds per litre without change. Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, Mr. Al-Qusayr, announced the adoption of India as a source for importing wheat. The minister had approved the travel of a technical delegation from the ministry to complete the technical studies conducted by the agricultural quarantine and to discuss the possibility of importing wheat from India in light of the government's tendency to diversify the import sources of strategic commodities to reduce any negative effects that may threaten food security, including the effects resulting from the crisis. Russian-Ukrainian crisis of climate change and drought. In the balance of payments report, the central bank revealed an increase in transport receipts by 27.9% to $4.7 billion compared to $3.6 billion as a main result of the increase in Suez Canal revenues by 16.6% to $3.4 billion compared to $2.9 billion. The CBE said that tourism revenues rose to $5.8 billion during the first half compared to $1.8 billion during the same period, and remittances from Egyptians abroad rose at a rate of 0.4% to $15.6 billion. The two largest governmental banks in Egypt succeeded in attracting a proceeds of £543 billion from the issuance of the 18% certificate within 24 days of its issuance. An official source revealed that one of the two banks was able to attract a proceeds of £173 billion from the 18% certificate, and in the same context, the second bank attracted a proceeds of £370 billion from the high return certificate. Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Engineer Tariq Al-Mulla, discussed with Engineer Khouly Amr, Minister of Investment of Jordan, during his visit to Cairo, increasing cooperation between the two sides in implementing natural gas delivery projects inside Jordan with Egyptian expertise through specialized petroleum sector companies. During the meeting, the Egyptian experiences in delivering natural gas to homes and their success in covering more than 13.5 million housing units with natural gas were reviewed after doubling the delivery rate to 1,200,000 housing units annually during the last 4 years in the presence of qualified companies and trained cadres and the availability of technical and engineering capabilities and a base industriality. The Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics announced on April 7, 2022, that the rate of self-sufficiency in rice is about 98.3% in 2020. The average per capita share amounted to about 29.6 kilogram compared to 26.7 kilogram in 2019, an increase of 10.9% in the average per capita share of the rice crop. The rate of self-sufficiency in poultry and bird meat reached about 98.1% in 2020, where the average per capita share reached about 15.4 kilogram compared to 13.7 kilogram in 2019, an increase of 12.4%. This is to increase production by 15.1%. The Minister of Trade and Industry, Naveen Gama, announced the approval of the Common Market COMESA on the Egyptian initiative to achieve regional industrial integration in the COMESA, as it was approved, and the General Secretariat was tasked with starting its implementation. She explained that Egypt's formulation of the Regional Industrial Integration Initiative stems from its regional responsibility towards the COMESA countries, as the initiative is in line with the objective of the COMESA Industrial Strategy 2017-2026 and the African Development Agenda 2063.
Welcome back again to Money Means Business, and with our guest, Dr. Said Khouly, Professor of Management, and also the Chairman of the High Supreme Council for Universities. Welcome again, sir. Always a pleasure having you. And again, I just renew our congratulations to the Egyptian Copts in Egypt and all over the world, and also for all Egyptians for the Easter. Well, holidays actually, and the Easter that we are celebrating here in Egypt, and followed by Sham and Nasim Monday that we're not going to be re-celebrating as we celebrated since we are fasting. You know, it's the holy month of Ramadan, so no salty fish, or maybe salty fish in iftar time. So we don't know, how things will be yet. Welcome, sir, with us. Always a pleasure having you.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much, and also I wish all Egyptians. I really don't distinguish between Coptic and the Muslim, but all Egyptian happy Easter and happy Ramadan, and we all together for all of us for Egypt in order to really introduce a new thing for Egypt in the near future, inshallah.
Definitely. Well, sir, how do you see now, what's happening? Well, internationally speaking, I'm not talking only about Egypt, because Egypt, we are just trying different, and just, we are really celebrating the holy month of Ramadan. We're really celebrating Easter amid all the hard times and soaring prices all over the world, of commodities that, really things are getting harder and harder for living. I'm talking about worldwide. And then the shortage of that. But in Egypt, things are different. We are just trying very hard to make things, available for everybody.
Of course, we faced for the last 2 years with COVID-19, many business stopped, and the food supply chain got affected, and as a result for that, with the war between Russia and Ukraine, which continue for almost a month and a half now, it affected the food shortage worldwide, not only in Egypt, but in worldwide. And it affected in so many ways: shortage in supply chain, whereas a lot of food factory really cannot get their material in order to produce their own product, and that affected worldwide supply. And thanks God, for Egyptian, we have a safety stock for, it will be enough for the next 5 to 6 months, which ensure the supply in our shops, in our supermarket. If you really see in the States, there is a food shortage, and you can see it in reality in the hypermarket and supermarket over there, and in Europe the same, and in Asia, even in the Gulf. But in Egypt, we really we have a crisis. The Prime Minister have a Center for Crisis Management,
Yeah.
and they make a proactive decision, not an interactive decision. They predict what will happen in the next few months, and they are really providing enough supply, food supply for all Egyptians. And the people of Egypt really put hand on hand in order to provide for the needy people in Ramadan, because in Ramadan it will be a high supply for our foods and so on, and that's our customs. But even so, with the high demand in Ramadan, we didn't see any shortage in any product we consume in our daily life, and that is the good news for Egyptian people.
Definitely, definitely. Also, like we all one day are just, going everywhere, as we see very marginalized areas to give them what's needed for Ramadan. Also, things that they would be craving for, like amaridin, all these things that, like when you go and buy, they are just, a plus actually, and something that you cannot really afford if you're just, poor. But then they're just like giving them from this and that, so that they just don't feel and this is Ramadan. They feel Ramadan, and they feel they are just celebrating also.
I remember the Egyptian food bank over 60 million supply for Egyptian people, and many NGO and the police department put hand on hand with the Egyptian people in order to provide the needy people in Egypt with all food supply during Ramadan period and even after Ramadan. So we are all together in this in order to really overcome any increase in prices and so on. And remember, the government of Egypt issue really a tough law to control prices during this kind of crisis, in order for the supplier not to increase their prices for the final customer. And that is really worked very well up to this point of time. Even so, there is a food shortage. I'm talking about worldwide, in the States, in Europe. They suffer a lot in terms of food supply, in terms of gas prices and so on. But in Egypt, it's still stable until this point of time.
Yeah, and during also, as we see, also they are just, providing everything that you see in the film. They're providing everything, even though they have that stands, in the streets for those people who are working during the time of iftar, and they just, cannot just go and get food. They're working in the streets, and they are just giving them. They're distributing food, their own meal during iftar time. Actually, it's for everybody that is in the street and working at that time or those hours in the street. Also last year, President Sisi made sure, said, we have no time, and we're working very hard on, building a lot of greenhouses and a lot of, vegetables production, and it also was produced in order to, of course, cater to the needs of the people. Not only that, also, in the time of the crisis of the Corona crisis, they were also exporting vegetables to Europe.
And that's what happened during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You remember it was a shortage in all over the world, not in Egypt.
Yeah.
And remember, that is the Egyptian value system. When we have a problem, when we have a crisis, when we have any shortage, we stand, all Egyptians stand together in order to be able to provide for the needy people their food supply and so on.
Sure.
And remember, awareness is very important. Also, the consumption during Ramadan, if you compare it with other Ramadan in the previous years, it's less this year because of the awareness of the people is how to save. You know, remember in Ramadan we intend to do like iftar party and so
banquets
on.
that would, and then the food that was thrown away.
Absolutely. And this year it was awareness through TV in order to be able to save, in order to feed other people, needy people. And it really worked this month and this year and during Ramadan.
I would say that as you know, the saying goes that every crisis has silver lining, and the silver lining in that, you know, like teaching us, or let's say, you know, the people, to be, you know, like I don't have to buy 100 kilos of a certain thing if I like mangoes, for example, and then, you know, like I eat 1 kilo or 2 kilos and the rest is thrown away. I buy, you know, like I make a lot of food and throw it away, you know, every day, you know, like I don't eat that, I want fresh food, so I throw it away. Many people used to do this.
Absolutely.
Now, you know, I think this is, you know, like the reminder that we should not be doing things like that. And a teacher, well, you should not really squander.
That's the culture awareness. You buy what you need.
Yeah.
You don't have to store, you don't have to buy large quantity in order to have a safety stock for, we don't need that. Just buy what you need, and that is as a culture change. Remember when this happened during the beginning of Russia and Ukrainian war, it was a rumor, there is no supply and so on, and let everybody go and buy a large stock and so on.
Yeah.
And it's a propaganda, it's a false propaganda, it's a false call.
Yeah.
And the supermarket is filled with the supply. Whenever you pick up, they let you take
You can
whatever
find
you
anything
want.
you want. Yeah.
But there is no shortage in our food supply in Egypt. And I want to ensure that because the government, it really played a very important role in providing the enough supply for food for the Egyptian people in all different items during Ramadan, and even before and after Ramadan. You will see this policy, it's working. Also, the prediction of President, and that is the leadership of President Sisi, is to expand our agriculture area with 1.5 million acre where the planted weeds, of course, in order to prepare us to depend on ourselves in the consumption of weeds. And that is a very important step we have to mention. And also expanding the storage area for weeds and so on.
Yeah.
It helped during this pandemic and during Russian-Ukrainian war.
Definitely. Well, you know, there is a role for scientific research in every, of course, you know, problem, every crisis, and scientific research is very important to, you know, create alternatives to any kind of, in the crisis, you know, let's say, you know, alternative to wheat, you know, places that we can get wheat from, alternatives in order to maximize the agriculture of wheat and other crops.
That is the rule for scientific research, for university and academic institution and research institution in Egypt. Remember, we have to find different alternatives because the majority of Egyptian people depend in their basic food on bread. And really, we should really find alternative way how to make some ingredient with weeds in order to minimize the importing wheats to Egypt. So we have the research and development for academic institution. They must find some other alternative in order to produce the bread with another ingredient. And it can happen because there is a bread made from potatoes and so on, like the Lebanese bread and so on. So many other alternatives we should really focus on during this crisis. And that is the role of research and development. We have to come with a creative alternative in order to look for other ingredient which we can mix it with wheat in order to provide breads for Egyptian.
But that can happen, you know. It's like, wow, you know, we've been for some time, you know, like in previous governments, they were trying, you know, corn and bread and wheat, for example. There could be alternatives. Of course, Egyptians are very keen. Everything is with bread, akl aish, you know. It's like, you know, like
Absolutely.
living. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So that, as you said, you know, can be, and all, you know, teaching, you know, them in during crises, you know, times in order to pass the crisis. That could be alternatives, and they are not bad. They're good. Still bread, but you know, different ingredients, not all, you know, dependent on wheat.
Absolutely. For example, in the Gulf states, for example, they depend on rice, and they call it aish, you know.
Yeah.
And that is their main item. You don't find any meal without rice and so on. In Asia, it's the same. So it should be a cultural change for Egyptian people. And remember, the wheat prices during the last few weeks increased by 17%. And also the logistic also increased because of the oil prices increase. So it is doubled now, the cost of wheat in order to import it from Russia or Ukraine to Egypt. And thanks for the Egyptian government for looking for other alternatives, such as looking for India, for example, to import from India wheat with less cost and less price. Also, the Egyptian government, they have a proactive decision in order to build a huge storage area in order to provide safety stock for any crisis in the future. And this, it comes with three important issues. Number one, the role of university and the academic institution to provide some other alternative. The other thing, awareness from our psychological people and so on, in order to talk to the Egyptian to change this habit from consumption of bread and so on. And that is, both of this, it really, we should build it into some regulation or some procedures in order to enhance our productivity from consumption of wheats in the future.
Definitely. Well, changing the behaviors of peoples, well, you know, it takes time. It's not easy.
Absolutely.
But then it can change, definitely, you know, like teaching people things, you know. Egyptians used to, 24/7, Cairo is just lit. People are in the streets, restaurants working, anywhere you go. You can buy food, you can, you know, do everything. Things changed a bit, you know, during curfews, of course, a lot, but then later on, they were just like expanding hours till midnight restaurants, you know, they don't, Ramadan, of course, is different now, you know, celebration, so it just is a bit, the time is, you know, like 2 o'clock in the morning, so, you know, people can celebrate indefinitely or eat out, but then, you know, how long does it take for, you know, like the consumption norms, living norms, you know, getting used to going out, you know, till wee hours, you know, but then that changed with the crises and all that, and mingling, and, you know, things changed. Even we see that, you know, like in, when, may God forbid, someone passes away, well, right now, you know, they can be paying condolences, but then, you know, people started, like, you know, sending messages, or, you know, like, not going all the time, you know, for fear to contract anything, you know. Although, you know, things are low in Egypt, they're not, you know, contracting the COVID-19, all that, not like other places in the world. But norms changed after all the restrictions that we had, from one thing after the other.
Of course, during the period of COVID-19, it was a huge culture change for Egyptian, for their habits, for example, for such as large gathering and so on, it changed.
Yeah.
So the external environment really affected us in order to change our behavior. And change it in a good way, not in a negative way. But remember, Egyptian and Egypt, what you call it outside of Egypt, when I was in New York, they tell us Cairo is the city never sleep.
Yes.
Which is the tourists like that in order to come to a city, a live city, and so on. And this, it doesn't change. But what changed is the negative habit we used to do in Egypt. Large gathering, it doesn't happen the same as before.
Yeah.
And it affected, of course, when you change attitude or behavior or value, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it takes time. And we learned during COVID-19 to change our habit of doing things. In education, for example, we used to have face-to-face classes. Now we have some classes online. Even in TV here, you have interview with people over Zoom or whatever, Skype and so on. So it is a cultural change. And we have to really focus on that. Large family is not the common trend right now. And there is a lot of awareness during this period of time, is to minimize the number of children for each family, which it really, no matter what you do with the growth rate, with the birth rate growth, it really eat whatever you doing in terms of development. And we have to work in all these different alternatives in order to enhance our economical system in the future.
Definitely. And also one of the most important things, habits that, we had, I say, we still have, but then when we, when you see a person, and you love, or the family, always hug and kiss, men and women. So the thing is, it's just, we remember when we were going to do this, oh, I miss you a lot. Well, shake hands, not even shaking hands exactly from far away. It changed, all that. So this is affecting, some, we don't mingle, not mingling, only some people, when they mingle, of course they wear the masks, afraid of anything. They're just, now over conscious of that, not to attract any kind of thing.
And that is because we have a crisis and everybody keen to protect themselves and to protect their parents and to protect others. And it happened. So external environment can really affect us, but in a positive way, not in a negative way.
Definitely. Well, going to education right now, always, since you're here, what's the new thing in universities, and what do we expect? Still, we are still going on with the same things like e-learning or like distant learning via internet, and now it became part of the curriculum, and we're going through with it.
Right now, we went back to the normal system.
Because, no internet teaching?
Maybe not too much, right now. We have face-to-face lecture in university, even in public school. We have to face-to-face lecture. We went back to the normal situation. But if anything happen in the future, we have another alternative, which is online, with hybrid system and so on. So we are working in both systems right now, but we went to the normal before COVID-19 right now, whether in university or in public school or private school. They start to go to the classes and have face-to-face classes or face-to-face lecture. We went back to, so there is a normality.
Normal hours, normal number of students, or some, like you divide them into so that there is no cramming?
We divide it into small groups in order to, what you call it as the prevention for not spreading the disease and so on. So instead of having 100, they divide it in 2 classes or 25 students or 30 students. Most of the university did that already.
Definitely.
And that is a good news. But the good news when it comes to academic institution, our university now hold high rank, world rank now, like Cairo University, like Ain Shams University. And right now we are working, for example, at Ain Shams University, Faculty of Commerce. We having next month a conference relating to environmental issues, the climate change and so on. So most of the university now working in education and in research at the same time. We used to be teaching Orient, now we have teaching and research, and the number of publication in international journal in most of the Egyptian university, I'm talking about public university, increased significantly. You know, now the citation from Egyptian author, it has a very positive effect in the ranking of our public university worldwide now. That is a good news.
Well, this is part of the changes that are taking place in Egypt. Well, of course, you know, like caring about education. Of course, you know, like the medical system, and you know, it's not, you know, some people would expect it overnight. You know, like well, education. You know, like we're going to put a student, you know, a baby, you know, or you know, like a toddler. Then he's coming up right away. You know, he's becoming a researcher. You know, or a whiz. You know, at university, it takes time. These things, you know, and everything takes time and takes money, and whether, you know, like changes in everything, changes cities, you know, cities that did not exist now, you know, are existing, and some kind of we're starting decentralization. Those, you know, are living like in Cairo is crammed, Alexandria is crammed, other places, you know, like main cities are crammed. So moving out of it, we're not living on the delta as we used to only. We're just, you know, expanding all over Egypt right now. So how do you see that?
That is the vision of Egypt strategy, Egypt Vision 2030, where they build a new city. When I go all over Egypt, there is Asyut, there is a new Asyut, there is Sohag, there is new Sohag, there is Ismailia, there is new Ismailia, which really expand, because we used to live in 5 to 8% on the land of Egypt. Now we are expanding that. Now we have a huge development in the administrative capital in New Egypt, for example, and we have many other in all different governments in Egypt. We have an alternative way. We have, for example, they build like over 500,000 units for expanding our governance, and that's a good news, because Cairo, it became very crowded city, and we have to get out of that in order to really facilitate and time consuming we used to have in transportation and so on, with the new development in infrastructure, in road infrastructure, in tunnel and bridges. They reduce it by half right now, and that is a good news for enhancing Egyptian productivity in the future.
What would you like to see right now? You know, we're talking about different aspects. What aspects, you know, are you, you know, dreaming of seeing in the different spheres? You know, I mean, pick any spheres you like, and what would you like to see in them?
Of course, what I'd like to see in Egypt is to be able to hand on hand, we join together in order to make Egypt in the future a strong company in terms of agriculture, in terms of industry, in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in all different aspects. And this is really, we should really stop any resistance. We should really stand together in order to be able to implement what the government and our vision to become true in the future. It is not only the government itself, it's not only the president himself, but all Egyptians should join the government and the president in order to make Egypt a strong country again. And started already in the last 6-7 years. We see a different Egypt right now in a daily basis. There is a development, and this requires the people to put the Egyptian, and I'm counting on our youth in order to put hand on hand with the government, with the leadership of Egypt, in order to make our Egypt, it's my country, and defend any rumors against Egyptian growth or Egyptian. We should really all stand together in order to do that, to defend any rumors, and we don't have to listen to any rumors against the Egyptian development.
Exactly.
We are in the right direction.
Exactly. Well, it's ongoing, and we see people trying to destroy the path, but then we're heading on, and we need all the help from everybody to do that, definitely.
And remember, God stands beside Egypt. You know,
of course.
It is the only country mentioned in all different religions. It's Egypt. So God with Egypt and with the leadership of Egypt and with the Egyptian people, inshallah, we will be able to develop more and more. And as I told you several times before, we are going to see Egypt in a different place within 2 years, and count on that.
We are. And as we are in the 15th of Ramadan, and of course we are celebrating also the Feast of Resurrection, Easter, for all Egypt, not only Coptic Christians, Egyptians, also for all Egypt, and Shamanism, the ancient Egyptian Easter. So happy Easter, happy Ramadan.
Happy Ramadan, the happy Easter for all Egyptians.
Definitely. And on this note, thank you very much, Dr. Said Khouly, for being with us, and always a pleasure having you. And I'd like also to thank our guest also online, and also our viewers for being there. And happy Easter, happy Resurrection celebration, Krista Sanesti, Alitha Sanesti. And I'd like also to say happy Ramadan again for the 15th of Ramadan. And we are saying God bless Egypt, God bless Egyptians, God bless our president, our army, our white army, and our police. And we quote from the Holy Quran, ادخلوا مصر إن شاء الله آمنين, enter Egypt, God willing, safe. And from the Holy Bible, Mubarak Sha'bi Misr, blessed be Egypt, my people. Tahya Misr, long live Egypt. Goodbye for now. See you again next week. Goodbye.